Part 1.
You will hear two friends talking outside an examination room about working over the vacation period. First, look at questions 1 to 5.
Hi, Peter. I'm so pleased that exam's over.
Me too, Crystal. I'm exhausted. I stayed up late last night studying and then got up early this morning.
Well, you can rest now. We're on holidays for 3 glorious weeks.
That is a nice thought. Unfortunately, though, I'm broke. And if I'm going to have enough money to get through next semester, I'll have to get a job over the holidays.
Yes, I've been thinking the same thing myself. As much as I'd like to go home to see my family, I think I'll have to get a job as well. Have you got any ideas or contacts?
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm going to go to the Student Employment Office. Do you want to come with me?
Sure, if you don't mind. Where is it?
Let me see. I've got a map here of the campus. It's up here in Y Block.
Oh, boy. We're a long way away from there. We've just come out of N Block. Here we are here.
Yes, N Block. Well, we can turn right and follow Circular Drive around, but that's the long way. What's the building opposite us?
That's the International Centre. I learnt English there before starting my Bachelor of Business.
Oh, right. I see. It says I Block. I guess I stands for International. Well, let's cross Circular Drive and walk up to the right.
No, there's lots of trees and gardens there. We'd better go to the left of the building. You can't get through otherwise.
Okay. We'll head past D Block, go between B and C blocks, and then across the sports fields to Y Block.
Okay, but I'm really hungry. How about going to the student canteen before we get to Y Block? It's just on the other side of A Block, near the main entrance.
Good idea. I didn't have breakfast this morning. I'm starving. Let's go.
Peter and Crystal arrive at the Student Employment Office and the receptionist meets them. Before the conversation continues, read questions 6 to 10.
Good morning. Can I help you?
Good morning. Yes. We'd both like to find some vacation work.
Right. For this vacation period?
Yes.
Have you registered with us?
No.
Oh, you have left it a bit late. Students usually register with us around mid-semester.
Really?
Yes, but never mind. You will need to register, but before you do that, you'll need to be interviewed by one of our consultants.
Oh. I thought you would just give us a list of job vacancies and we would contact those places directly.
No. We don't give out contacts until after you've been interviewed and registered.
I see.
Would you like to make an appointment to have an interview?
Yes, please.
Yes, as soon as possible.
Let me see. Today's Thursday the 11th. Our consultants are here tomorrow, but they are going on a staff in-service from next Monday to Wednesday. So it's either Friday, that's tomorrow, or next Thursday.
Couldn't we see one of them this afternoon?
No, they are fully booked, I'm afraid. End of semester is the busiest time for job placements, as you can imagine. There has been a cancellation for tomorrow morning at 9:30, or you can come after 2 tomorrow afternoon.
Can we be interviewed together?
Yes, I'm sure that would be okay.
Crystal, is 9:30 all right with you?
Yes, that suits me. Actually, I'm going to the dentist tomorrow. Let me check the time. Hang on, the dentist is at 9, so could we make it at 2?
No problem.
OK, that's for 2 o'clock then. What's your surname?
Pastel. P-A-S-T-E-L. Peter's my first name.
Thanks. And yours?
My surname's Lou, L-U, and my first name's Crystal. That's C-R-Y-S-T-A-L.
Right. A contact phone number, please.
My mobile is 0412 987 35.
Thank you. And I'll need your student number as well, so I can access your files.
Mine is B for business, 723466.
And mine is B, for business as well. I690011.
That's BI690011 for you, Peter. And
No, that's mine.
Wrong way round.
oops, it's BI690011 for Crystal and B723466 for Peter. I'll just put an arrow next to your names to show what I've done wrong. Right then. See you both.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 2.
Part 2.
You will hear Inspector Jack Dunn talking about international driver's licenses at an information session for international travellers. As you listen to the first part of the talk, answer questions 11 to 16. Before you listen, look at questions 11 to 16.
I'm sure that you have all heard about international driving licenses. They have been around since 1949, when the United Nations gave approval for their use. This meant that travellers could drive freely in the 186 countries that recognise the international driving licence system, regardless of the language that the drivers spoke. The only conditions were that the driver had to already hold a driving licence in their home country, and they had to be at least 18 years of age. International driver's licenses are well recognised. After all, they've been in use for over 50 years. To break the language barrier, the licence is printed in 11 different languages, but the last page of the booklet is always in French. As I said, it is a booklet about the size of a passport, 10.8 by 15.25 centimetres to be exact. So it is easy to carry with your travel documents. It's not too thick or heavy either, only 17 pages. All of the pages are coloured white, but the cover of the licence is grey. It is a useful form of identification when you travel because it includes a passport-sized photograph and the driver's signature. The International Driver's Licence can only be purchased from authorised travel associations in different countries, but it can also be ordered on the internet. The cost, of course, varies from country to country, and for the term or the duration of the licence. For example, a 1-year licence might cost approximately $40, whereas a 3-year licence costs double that. A 5-year licence will set you back about $100.
Before the final part of the talk, look at questions 17 to 20.
Before I outline the 4 most important points to consider before rushing off to get your international driver's license, I should probably mention that, yes, the international driver's license covers all types of vehicles from motorbikes to trucks. But just as in your own country, you have to be qualified to drive such vehicles. You might like the idea of driving around the Australian outback on a motorbike, or checking out the English countryside in a bus with all your mates, but you'll have to take the appropriate test before you set off. Okay, now the 4 main points. Firstly, you cannot use an international license in the country in which it is issued. It is for international travel only. Some international students avoid this rule by ordering their licenses on the internet, which will ask them to nominate a country of your choice for that very purpose. Secondly, some countries won't allow you to use an international license indefinitely. In Australia, for example, you can only use the international license for a year. After that, you must get an Australian driving license. Other countries aren't as strict as that. Thirdly, drivers on international licenses must abide by the road rules in the country that they are visiting. If you are caught breaking those road rules, you will have to pay the penalty, usually a fine. And if you are the cause of an accident, expect to pay for any damages that you are responsible for. Holding an international driver's license does not give you the right to be reckless. And yes, if you have been suspended or banned from driving in your own country, the same rules apply with an international driver's license. You must have an existing driver's license to apply for an international driver's license. Some police will, in fact, want to see both your international license and your own driver's license, so carry both licenses with you to save wasting valuable time. Finally, you don't have to take another driving test to get an international driver's license. Your own driver's license is proof that you know how to drive. However, it is your responsibility to learn the road rules of the country that you are visiting and to understand what the different road signs mean. Police are not always understanding to foreign drivers. If you break road rules either deliberately or out of ignorance, expect to pay the price. Police are ultimately the same everywhere.
That is the end of part 2.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 3. Part 3.
You will hear 2 students presenting a tutorial on 2 Asian countries, Singapore and Malaysia. First, look at questions 21 to 30.
Nancy and Jenny are presenting the first of our profiles on Asia today. You looked at Singapore and Malaysia, didn't you?
Yes, and we found lots of similarities between the 2 countries.
Did you follow the outline that I gave you?
Yes, we did.
First of all, the total land area of Singapore is 630 square kilometres, whilst Malaysia's was 329,758 square kilometres. Obviously, Malaysia is a much larger nation with a bigger population, almost 24 million. It is bigger than Australia's population, in fact. We have 19,700,000. Singapore has just over 3 million.
Did you look at their population mix?
The population of both Malaysia and Singapore are multiracial. They each have a mixture of Malays, Chinese, Indians and other ethnic groups as well, who all live quite harmoniously together. The breakdown of the population is different though. In Malaysia, the Malays, or Bumiputras as they're called, outnumber the Chinese and the Indians. They make up about 65% of the population. In Singapore, 3/4 of the population is Chinese, with only a few 100,000 Malays and Indians. English is widely used in Malaysia, as well as in Singapore.
Yes, they all study compulsory English at school, and adults use English a lot in their daily lives. For many years, Singaporeans have been sending their children abroad to study in English-speaking countries. And in recent years, Malaysians are also studying overseas and getting overseas work experience.
Before the conversation continues, read questions
Australia has had a fairly stable relationship with Singapore over the years. Can you briefly talk about that?
Yes. Singapore and Australia have always maintained a friendly and warm relationship. As Jen said, many students come to Australia to study here, and often they stay here to work. Similarly, lots of Australians live and work in Singapore. Singapore was one of the first Asian countries to really take advantage of its geographical location and the technological advances that were made at the end of last century. It has a strong economy.
Singapore and Australia signed an expanded trade accord in February, which covers all sorts of subjects from education through to customs procedures at the airports. It's accepted that this accord will really strengthen ties between the two countries.
So trade between Singapore and Australia is continuing to grow. But we're not one of Singapore's top 3 trading partners. They're the US, Japan and Malaysia.
Yes, and interestingly, but not surprisingly, I guess, Malaysia's top 3 trading partners are the US, Japan and Singapore.
Yes, Singapore and Malaysia are neighbours, so you would expect that. What did you discover about the relationship between Malaysia and Australia?
Well, it hasn't been as stable as Singapore and Australia's friendship. Malaysians and Australians get along well on a personal level. There have been an increasing number of tourists travelling between the two countries, so it isn't just the students who are coming here. Historically, Australia and Malaysia, and for that matter Singapore as well, have a lot in common. You know, with the British colonialists. Malaysia now doesn't want to blindly follow Western ideas, which is fair enough.
Yes. This is something that we'll talk about later in the semester. Australia's international relations in the region.
There do seem to be misunderstandings and disagreements between Malaysia and Australia, but diplomats say that these are exaggerated by the media.
Yes, we all know the power that the media has. Was there anything else?
Well, yes. What I found was that Singaporeans are generally regarded as well-educated, well-travelled, knowledgeable. They enjoy a quality of life that is envied in other countries, especially in other Asian countries. The Singaporean government is spending a lot of money on education and technology.
Is this going to continue? Did you look at the government's agenda for the future?
They're developing a knowledge-based economy. Unlike other Southeast Asian countries, Singapore hasn't been dependent on the production and export of commodities. They intend to be IT-driven, with a highly skilled economy.
I see. And how did this differ in Malaysia?
Well, the Malaysians are very enterprising people. They're well educated and highly skilled too. Like the Singaporeans, they've got a strong work ethic. We both felt that of the two countries, Malaysians were much more Asian in their way of thinking, although they seem to mix Eastern and Western traditions easily. This could be one of the reasons that tourism is doing so well in Malaysia. The economy once relied almost solely on the export of raw materials, but that's changed a lot. All the experts say that Malaysia has a huge future.
You've obviously enjoyed your research. I'm sure you'll enjoy learning more about the region as we continue on with the other overviews.
That is the end of part 3.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 4.
Part 4.
You will hear a guest speaker at an alternative energy seminar talking about wind power. First, look at questions 31 to 40.
Good morning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak at this year's Alternative Energy Seminar. Right. Well, I know that the next speaker, John Dunkett, is going to talk about the mechanics of generating power using wind as an alternative source of energy, so I won't be using any technical terms, and I won't be going into the technology of how wind generators actually work. I'll be concentrating on sharing my own experiences with you. For those of you who don't know, I live on a very windy farm some 3,000 kilometres from the nearest city. That means we're not connected to the State Electricity Commission's grid, and we have to produce our own electricity. When I first bought the farm in 1975, we got our electricity supply exclusively from diesel and petrol generators. The problems with this were twofold. A lot of fuel was wasted because the generators usually didn't run to their full capacity. And more importantly to my wife, the generators were extremely noisy, especially at night. After we'd been on the farm for about 6 months, I heard about what they called a hybrid system. This meant that we could keep the diesel generator, but we also got a generator that was powered by wind. Because our place is so consistently windy, especially in summer, our hybrid system worked very well. In fact, we couldn't believe how well it worked. We also had friends closer to the city who bought this hybrid system at the same time, and they were very pleased with the efficiency of it as well. Their farm is considerably less windy than ours, so even in moderately windy sites, the hybrid system appeared to work well. Both of us agreed that we made substantial savings in fuel at the end of the first year, and of course, our wives were happier, because it wasn't as noisy as often. In 1984, we found that we were rarely using our diesel generator and decided to try our hand at becoming self-sufficient in wind-generated power. We were sure that we'd survive without the backup of the diesel generator, so we imported 4 wind generators from Denmark. America and Australia were dabbling in the technology, but we were too far behind the Europeans. The benefits of wind generators were much more obvious to the Danes, and now, as a result, they supply about 50% of wind turbines around the world. Anyway, the Danish wind generators had a rated power output of 55 kilowatts per generator. They made quite an impact on our landscape, And even though we could sometimes hear the mechanical noise from the generator itself, they were very quiet. The rotor diameters were about 20 metres. We felt proud that we were only using energy from clear, moving air to generate our electricity. No diesel or petrol or fuel smells either. We knew that our resource was renewable. We are, after all, not going to run out of wind, especially at our place. The wind turbine is used to charge up batteries which store the energy. Last year, we bought a 600 kilowatt machine. It is about 46 metres high with a rotor diameter of 43.5 metres. We found that the cost of the turbine was recovered within about 8 months. It should produce over 1 million kilowatt hours per year for us. It does look a bit strange against our flat terrain, but we love it. Best of all, my wife says she can't even hear the windmill, as she calls it, from our house at night. Frankly, I think her hearing just isn't what it used to be, but I must agree that it is very quiet. Additionally, we expect it to last for about 20 years with regular 6-monthly maintenance. Our farm is isolated, and yet you'd be amazed by the number of visitors we have each year to inspect our wind turbines and the effectiveness of the wind generators. Actually, we often joke that when we stop making money from the farm, we'll charge tourists to come and visit our very own wind farm. There is also the possibility of selling the electricity that we generate back to the Electricity Commission, but I think that is all in the future. We've had a lot of people ask us why we chose wind power generated energy rather than solar energy, but as soon as they visit our windy farm, they know why. Even if our farm were not as windy as it is, we'd make that choice again. From all accounts, it is the least expensive form of renewable energy technology that we have. It can be used in a variety of applications, from isolated farms such as ours to supplying small sailboats without power. Now, I'll hand you over to John Dunkett from the Danish company that sold us our original 4 wind turbines, and he'll explain how this remarkable technology has developed over the last 20 or 30 years.
That is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.